We're recording this on the feast day of St. John Damascene, the crusher of images, the apologist against the iconoclastics. Let's pour some coffee on that. Hey guys, Father Brad here, and you're watching Coffee Talk, where we drink coffee and talk about Jesus. Iconoclasm comes from two words in Greek, and we put them together. One, icon, meaning image. You probably knew that one. Klastes, meaning to crush or to break. And so it means the breaker of images. And iconoclasm has had many iterations and expressions throughout human history, not just Christian history or Jewish history, but it's the movement or tendency or group of people or ideology that desires to destroy images particularly of the divine or the holy, because those movements or those people think that to depict the divine is impure or not good, or God does not desire it. And so it's people who would take holy images and literally, that's what it means, crush them or break the images. And this has had many expressions throughout history, but one of the major ones in Christianity is in the second half of the first millennium. That's like the 500s through the 700s. And the biggest apologists in that time period against iconoclasm, so for images against iconoclasm, is St. John Damascene. We're going to quote him in a little bit. So the question is, why all the fuss? Why would people be upset about images? I mean, we like images. A lot of us have seen stained glass and stuff. It's not an issue right now in the church mainly. So why do people at some points have a problem with holy images? Well, one, it is true that the Jewish people in the Old Testament and revelation through the Israelite people was very critical of depicting an image of God or depicting the divine realities at all. We can see it in Scripture, we'll talk about in a second, but it was not as prevalent because guess what? We hadn't had the incarnation yet. God had not become man. God was literally our only experience of him was this distant, non-corporal experience. And yet, when Jesus was incarnate, whenever the second person of the Trinity took on flesh, he baptized the eyes. He baptized the senses. And so we can have an image of Jesus because he took on an image. He took on flesh. And so our relationship to depicting God changed forever in that moment. Secondly, Scripture, a false reading of Scripture. They quote Exodus chapter 20, verse 4. And this is what it says. You shall not make for yourselves a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, that is in the water under the earth. Wow, that seems pretty clear. So I guess we should all be iconoclastic people now. Okay, I gotta go find a statue to crush. No! Okay, that's a bad reading. We have to read Scripture in light of all other Scripture. It's one of the principles of reading the Bible. You can't just take a passage in and of itself and just have it and just base an entire idea just on that one passage. It has to fit in the whole framework of the church and history and all the other parts of Scripture. And so we see just a few chapters later in Exodus 37, Moses comes down out of the cloud from the top of the mountain, in which God has told him and revealed to him, and is recorded in Exodus 37, how the Ark of the Covenant is supposed to look. And here's what he says. This is Moses. Bezalel made the ark of acacia wood. 2 cubits and a half was its length, a cubit and a half its breadth, a cubit and a half its height, so it's a square, or a cube. And he overlaid it with pure gold within and without, and made a molding of gold around it. And he cast it with 4 rings of gold for its 4 corners, 2 rings on each side and 2 rings on its other. And he made poles of acacia wood and overlaid them with gold. And put the poles into the rings, the side of the ark, to carry the ark. So that's how you lift the ark up, right? The 4 rings and the poles through. Here's where it gets interesting. And he made 2 cherubim of hammered gold on the 2 ends of the mercy seat, so on top. He made them. One cherub on the one end and one cherub on the other end. Remember, this is Moses recalling what God told him to do. And so God says in Exodus chapter 20 that you shall not make a graven image, a carved image of anything in heaven above, and then tells them to make angels and put them on the Ark of the Covenant. What's up? Is God just trying to juke move us? Is he trying to catch us? No. I think we need to read the first pronouncement from Exodus chapter 20 is don't worship images. Don't make it like the golden calf. Think of the golden calf. Obviously, that is not good. They were trying to depict a God that wasn't God, and they were worshiping it. Instead, maybe we could use heavenly images of angels and maybe even of God, especially since the incarnation, as part of our worship of the one true God. So it couldn't have been an absolute no-no to images at all, because then God tells us to make images. So there you go. And number 3, iconoclasm tends to fall into a bigger philosophical subset called Gnosticism, which rejects the body and just idolizes the spirit, as if they can be divided. It's called dualism as well, in which we want to get rid of the body. We think it's holding us down. It's bad, body bad, spirit good. This isn't a Christian understanding. And so, like we said at the beginning, our bodies are good, our eyes are good, our senses are good. So God desires us to use those things. Remember, for much of Christian history, the majority of Christians were not literate. The majority of teaching of the faith was done through images. When you walk into a church, usually, especially when you're from our area, if you're from South Louisiana, you'll see stained glass windows. Those aren't just there to be pretty. Those are there to catechize. Those are there to show us in an image a great mystery of our faith. Here's St. John Damascene. I'll end with a quote from him, who is talking about images. He says, "Previously, God, who is neither a body nor a face, absolutely could not be represented by an image. But now that he has made himself visible in the flesh and has lived with men, I can make an image of what I have seen of God and contemplate the glory of the Lord, his face unveiled."